Hello guys, Lenken here, and today I'm making a short tier list, the first one for 2024. There are some differences now from the last one. Basically, we can see the new legendary heroes climbing a lot in the end game arena as well. So let's take a peek. I will just go through the top 30% of all these heroes. There are 47 of them out here, only 1/3 that I think is worth mentioning. First, I just go through them straight from 1 to, well, 17 or so, and then I can maybe go into some more details. The first one I want to mention will be Sigurd Moore, legendary hero, the next one on my list to level up as soon as my main team that are maxed. This should be part of my main team, is not yet. This guy, solid, so strong, and basically the reason he is so good is he can counter the number 2 hero, Magla. Should be number 1 if it wouldn't be for Sigurd now. But Magla, who have always been in the top when it comes to the heroes, this is the one that you still need to farm in the catacombs. Basically, it's only Magla and Osgoth that I will mention further down. These are the two that you must farm in catacombs. The rest are good to have, but not so important. These are the two you need to farm on a constant basis, basically. So number 2, Magla. Number 3 will be another legendary heroes. Esravel. Will be hard to get her high up in the ranks since she's so new, but the lifesteal ability and the way she can cripple opponents really, really strong. Gonna see her more and more, I think, in the end game. Number 4 should be actually another hero, but it will be Ulfuria still. She is really, really strong, solid arena hero, since she can't basically die for a long time. But there are some exceptions for this, and we can now see in the end game fights Morvena taking out Ulfuria in a couple of seconds. I've shown you a video on this as well. And because of this reason, Morvena should be actually above Ulfuria, but I'm giving Ulfuria the 4th place and Morvena the 5th place just because you really need some solid gear and a really strong Morvena to actually be able to counter Ulfuria that well. So Ulfuria much easier to farm and get strong, so that's why I still give her the 4th place, even though Morvena actually is stronger than Ulfuria in the really, really end game. On 6th place, you will actually have Osgoth, the one I mentioned, really strong for arena, for PvP in general. And then we will actually start popping in the tanks that used to be useless. They are really strong now. Father Arnaud, end game, you can see him in PvP. And after that, I want to mention Altosk. Really good still, even though he's gotten some nerfs. And another really strong damage dealer, AoE for PvP as well. Isara does really good on the Harbinger bosses as well. Then it's time to pop in some tanks again. We will have Khalil. And actually I forgot one before that. Before Khalil we actually have, I would say Alfred is actually better than Khalil, but they are both really good. This one, to reduce the damage of your team, really solid. And then we had Khalil, really good for PvP fights since he can stun as well. And tanks have gotten some really nice buffs lately. And just because of that, we will mention one more, and that's Victor. Victor is really strong as well, really hard to kill. After that, I want to mention Albus. Can do some really nice damage, this one. And we should not forget Lacroix. This one can do some really nice and evil stuff still because of the silence effect he has, stopping your opponents to do those ultimates, and then still kicking some healing that could be enough if you have a really solid team. This could work really well. Then I want to mention Adriana. I haven't seen her that much actually in PvP fights, and I think it's because she's pretty new and we haven't really gotten her that high up maybe. But in theory, she should be really good with the stun effect that she has. So Still haven't seen her much, but I want to give her quite a good position as well. After that, we need to kick in some healers. Not always the best for PvP, especially not for Arena. You won't see healers that much in Arena, if it's not as Ravel, of course. But other than that, when it comes to fighting in mansions and you need to take multiple teams, well, you have Altine. She is so strong for this, since she does some really good healing. And just because of that, we want to mention Dr. Wolfgang as well. These two are solid healers for especially killing a lot of waves. And in the same way, if you struggle with catacombs, there are basically two heroes you really need. It's Altine and it's Dr. Wolfgang. These are the two if you're struggling in the catacombs. Try to have them both in the same team setup. Get that healing up. Do slow damage, but keep your team alive. So only for the end fights, maybe when you meet the bosses in catacombs, you might have to remove both healers just to get your strongest DPSs out if you don't manage to kill the bosses. Can mention as well for catacombs, Magla is the third one I would throw in as well. You get extra healing from her after winning a fight, and the stun makes the fight even slower. Take your time, get those heals up, don't die. Other than that, not that many more heroes I want to mention. The last one would actually be Heng Shui. She has some good features as well. She can buff the front hero a lot, so there are some tactical advantages with this one. But this will be I think it was 17 I mentioned now, the top 17 heroes. When it comes to basically PvP fights, for the bosses, there are basically only 6 heroes that you really need. Bosses, I mean like Harbingers, for example. There are only 6 heroes you really need. It will be Albus. He does some massive damage. It will be Alfred to reduce the resistance of the boss. It will be Isara, because her poison does some massive damage, basically. You will see a lot of heroes, players using Altosk because of the fact that he can do some extra damage against the bosses. And basically there are only 2 more that you need with this team, and it's some kind of buffers. You have one that's really, really strong for this, and it's actually Heng Shui. She can do, so the team actually does a lot of extra damage. Members inflict by 50% for the next 4 seconds, so really good if you have the energy to perform these ability fasts. And then you have the one I mentioned in my last video, Avikelar as well. Really good for this ability to do some really nice extra damage on the bosses. Besides these 6, this is what you should focus on, getting these heroes up. And it's basically only Albus and Alfred and Isara you need to get high level on. Altosk as well. But Avikelara, I said wrong. Alfred does not need a really high level. Avikelara doesn't really need a high level. And Heng Shui doesn't really need a high level. So not that many that needs to do some massive damage. You get a few like Albus or Isara as your main damage dealers, and then you just pump in the debuffers that I just mentioned. Another one that could do some good debuff if you have a lot of werewolves would be this one. Ignore the resistance. And I will mention a couple of more heroes that you could have in the mix if you don't have the top 6 that are good for the Harbingers. And one that actually will be actually hard to get her high up in level, but Nifa does some really nice damage because of she has some ability. Just need to, I don't remember which one it is. Of course, it's the last one. So she can do up to 35 extra damage to werewolves and humans, so will work really good against the Harbingers that aren't vampires. Then you will do some massive extra damage, but it's a legendary hero, so will be hard to get her high up, and really not needed since you have the other ones. Sadaharu as well. There are some bugs with the poison that he can do some massive damage if you get lucky. And then we get to the other debuffers. Well, then you would have Esravel. She has some nice debuffs. If her decay works as I think it does, then she should actually remove the armor resistance and magic resistance with 50%. And if that's the case, she will be really, really good against the Harbingers. Haven't really tried her out that much yet since she's the newest one. Fangren can be mentioned. He has actually can add 20% extra damage on the Harbingers, and he has also this reduced attack speed. Works well against, for example, the Harbinger Osgoth. You won't get as many debuffs if you use Fangrim. Other debuffers that can be good to know about is actually Halbjörn. Halbjörn actually got a way to reduce the resistance on opponents, just as Victor. Victor can do some really nice debuffs as well. Steals 55% of his target's resistance. We can also mention a few more, but we are getting lower on the ranks now. Stamatus can actually be good with the resistance reduction as well. He gives two of your main team heroes basically some extra boosts, but it's not the entire team. And Octavia and Edison as well could be good for some extra buffs. Octavia, I think, is this one. She, especially if you have a vampire team, then you can reduce a lot of armor if you have assassins, tanks, or bruisers. And Edison as well, he has some perk that actually helps the nukers, and he actually has this one as well where he can reduce the magic resistance a lot on your opponents. See you guys.